Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Carolina Geek Podcast. My name is John Thomas Hill, and once again, I'm here to talk to you about all things geek. And I wanted to kind of go on here and voice my opinion about Star Trek in recent years. Now, I'm going to go off and tell you, I'm going to go on and tell you right now, I'm not a huge Star Trek fan. I like Next Generation. I think Deep Space Nine is my personal favorite. A lot of Trek traditionalists and Trek fans in general don't like Deep Space Nine because it's too dark, and in their view gets away from the core vision of Gene Roddenberry. Well, here's my take on what's going on recently in Star Trek fandom. Now, we all know that in 2009, and for a little while, it's about 2015, we had three films that came out. The new Star Trek films, Star Trek Into Darkness and Star Trek Beyond. They were okay. I liked the first. I liked the second somewhat, not as much as the first. The third I wasn't really fond of because it was too much of an action-driven film to be a true Star Trek film. And I know why a lot of traditional Trek fans don't like the new films, because to them it gets away from Gene Roddenberry's initial mission from the original series of being more of a philosophical show of talking about great social issues and whatnot, of addressing those issues and whatnot. Whereas the three films are pretty much action-driven, and they do tend to stay somewhat within the boundaries of Star Trek. There was a lot of talk about the redesign of the Klingons. There were a lot of talk about the alternate reality and all of that, and Spock meeting Spock. But overall, I liked it. But I can understand where the fans are coming from. But the reality is that Star Trek's always been a better TV series than it has been a movie series. And if you give yourself an honest evaluation of the 6 films that the original crew did, the 3 films that the Next Generation crew did, and the 1 film that both of them did, which was Generations. In my view, only 3 are actually good. Wrath of Khan, Undiscovered Country, First Contact. There are some that are okay, that are watchable. The first one sucked. I think the only reason it was successful at the box office was, hey, we got Star Trek. Hooray! But looking back at it now, and I remember the first time I ever watched it on TV, I didn't go see it in the theaters, I was really, really, really let down because, to be honest with you, I'd seen Khan before I saw the first one. And I thought, well, number 2 is real good, number 1 has to be really good. No, it's not. It doesn't hold up. The uniforms suck. The whole Voyager thing, it was just awful. 3, 4 were okay. I understood where they were going with it. I didn't really care for going back to Our Time to Save, humpback whales and such. It just seemed like a little far-fetched to me. But in my honest opinion, I think that 3 and 4 are okay. 5, Final Frontier, yeah, bad. No bueno. No bueno. No good at all. I hated that film. It really was bad. Generations was what it was. It was a nostalgia trip. It was okay. It was watchable. It was enjoyable for what it was. It basically ended the story of Kirk and the original crew. Yes, Kirk dies in it. I can understand why they pulled that trigger. I kind of agree with it because you don't have Kirk hanging around to maybe rear his ugly head into the universe again. First Contact was the best of the 3 Next Gen films. By far. To me, it's one of the 3 that I really like. And they had some interesting takes on the characters that I liked, like giving Troy a sense of humor. Now, Insurrection, some people like it, I don't. It was still way too contrived in my opinion. Hang on just a second, I gotta get a reply to somebody. Okay. Hang on a second, I gotta reply to somebody real quick. Insurrection, for the most part, was just bad. And I really think that what bugged me about Insurrection was just the fact that the plot really wasn't that great. I've only watched it once, maybe partially another time, and I just didn't really like it. So I won't say I'm boned up about it. That's a really bad word to put in there. Okay. Hang on just a second, folks. I should learn how to talk when I'm typing. I'm sorry about that, folks. Here's my my biggest concern about Insurrection is the fact that it just really didn't come out and really appeal to me as a. It just felt like a contrived plot. It was a plot that we'd seen in Next Generation episodes and all this, and it tried to be a little bit different. Whereas First Contact had really taken on Picard and the Borg head on. And Insurrection was just this generic alien race, and another generic alien race, the Federation doing something dumb, what you've done it before. In the backdrop of Deep Space Nine, which had this tremendous story going on with the Dominion War and all that, all of a sudden the Federation Picard's out here doing this little side gig while a war is going on, the biggest war in timeline history of the Next Gen universe. Okay? But the series does redeem itself with Nemesis. Originally, I didn't care for Nemesis a whole lot, but over the years, I've kind of warmed to it. It's flawed. I don't necessarily think the whole idea of a Picard clone is believable. I don't really think the Remans were as well developed as they should have been. But I think that it had its moments. I think it was a little too cheesy. I think the way Data died was too obvious. He was going to die the hero's death. I would have made it to where there was a question about it. Now, of course, they went in knowing that they weren't going to come back for another film. So that's probably why they pulled the trigger on that. Plus, I think they just, it had its run. And to me, the movies just, the last two weren't up to snuff with First Contact. Now, there was a gap of, 7 years between Nemesis and the new Star Trek film. And in that time, we had Enterprise, which, honestly, I would have enjoyed it had it not been for the fact that it was the fourth straight Trek series in a row. And you had Next Generation, you had Deep Space Nine, you had Voyager, and now you had Enterprise. And for nearly 20 years, you had a non-stop Star Trek on the TV, and there was simply no escaping it. And to me, the quality of Enterprise wasn't what it was in Deep Space Nine and the latter part of Next Generation. And I think it was just fatigue. I, as a science fiction fan, not necessarily a huge Trek fan, just was tired of seeing Star Trek. That's the reason I gave up on Enterprise pretty quick. That's why I gave up on Voyager pretty quick. Voyager, the first couple of seasons were and I know I probably should have stuck around. And the reason I kind of gave up on it was Jerry Ryan's character, 7 of 9, was way too sexualized. That, I know I've seen episodes where they've made her character competent. She wasn't just a hot body, okay? But it just struck a nerve with me as like they're just making this friend. It's just to me it was a moment where I turned off completely to Voyager. It just never found its feet with me. It just struggled. The whole Kazon thing was stupid. The cast was good. Don't get me wrong. It just never, in my viewpoint, I never found the reason why I should watch it. Okay, I never got the reason why I should watch it. And to me, it never. I mean, Babylon 5 was on at the time, and I was really enjoying that. Deep Space Nine was on it. There's only so many shows you can watch at one time, and at the same time, you want to be more than just science fiction. And I just didn't want to watch it. It didn't appeal to me. And I've not watched it since. I've watched an episode here and there. I've watched an episode of Enterprise here and there. But if you said which series would you want to watch from beginning to end, Deep Space Nine would be number 1, Next Generation would be number 2, Voyager would be number 3, because I'm not a big fan of the original series. It's too cheesy. I'll be that honest. It was too. I, as a little kid, thought it was cheesy. So, and I'll get into that one of these days, why I'm what I like to call myself the hipster geek. Maybe I should change the name of my podcast to Hipster Geek. But the reason it's called Carolina Geek, for just to take a little tangent here, is I've got a Facebook group I'm trying to get started. And it's hard because I'm older, most of my friends are older, they got lives, some of them have kids. You know how hard it is to keep track of kids. So, anyhow, that's the story there. But let's talk about the new films. With Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto and Carl Urban and all that, Zoe Saldana and the rest. If you take it for just being a movie and don't try to hold it to the franchise itself, it's a good action film. It's enjoyable. I liked it. I liked the second one. Not as much as the first, but the second one was good. Third one I wasn't really fond of. It just was... too all over the place. It just didn't. It kind of stretched believability, you know. I remember 11 years ago going to Dragon Con, and they had a screening for the film in the Star Trek track they have there. And I was expecting that some of the older fans wouldn't care for it a whole lot, but they would be okay with it. They wouldn't crap on it the way they did. And the newer fans would enjoy it for what it was. Boy, was I wrong. Yeah, it was like New Coke. For those of us of a certain age who remember New Coke from 35 years ago, yeah, it was that. It was the New Coke of the Star Trek universe. It went over like that. And it was better than New Coke was, because New Coke was gone, I think, within a year or so. Where the Trek films did good at the box office, but not great. That's the reason we don't have it anymore. Was the third one didn't do as well as they would have liked. Plus, Star Wars was coming around. And plus, I think the folks at Paramount, Viacom, CBS, whatever, whoever owns the rights to it, decided the movie franchise wasn't for us. Now, Carl Urban does a fantastic job as Bones McCoy. Zachary Quinto, fantastic job as Spock. Pine does okay as Kirk. I don't buy him. He's too hyper for Kirk. Okay, he's too hyper for Kirk. Zoe Saldana as Uhura, great. The rest, great. The cast was fine. Even better than fine. They were really good. I just think that it just was too far from the Trek nuance. It didn't have that feel. It felt like an action film just thrown in to the Trek universe, and it just didn't have the appeal. To me, it was enjoyable. I can watch it again and enjoy it again, but I don't feel passionate about it. So the movies end, and now streaming's the thing, and CBS All Access launches Star Trek Discovery, and they decide to have main character who is not a captain. It's a member of the crew, an African American woman or a black woman. I don't think you can call it African American, because America technically does not exist in the Star Trek universe. It's not like it got wiped out. It's just that it got merged into this huge Federation thing where I think does it actually exist as a sovereign nation? The Trek, I don't think it does. I think it's still like a territory, but it's like the one world government in the Star Trek universe where it's like a state. I guess, I don't know. But Zoe Saldana does great as Uhura. But it doesn't touch upon. I got sidetracked. I'm sorry. It does well, but I've only watched a little bit of it. And the reason I haven't really watched it, because there's so much out there that I really want to watch, and there's only so many hours of the day. And it's one of those shows I know I'll like, but I'm not going to fall in love with it. It may change my mind. The new season looks exciting, where they jump into the future a bit. I'm not going to mention how many years. And it completely changes everything. But Star Trek Picard, I think, is going to be a major game changer in Star Trek. Give me just a second, I need to reply to this message. So here's the thing. The reason I say that is it brings an edge to the Star Trek universe. Not necessarily so much a dark edge. It's a little dark, but it makes you feel like Deep Space Nine made me feel. In that it's not perfect. It's not perfect like it is on Earth. And that there are little corners of the galaxy that things aren't perfect. That there are people who are struggling. There is crime out there. There is cool stuff that you can write about. You know, the biggest problem I have with Trek, in Gene Roddenberry's vision, is no drama. The crew all get along. That ain't real life. I don't even get along with my own family. Okay? Even your best friends, who you love dearly, you're going to occasionally have times where you're going to scream your head off at them. What the hell's the matter with you? Why are you doing that? Why are you voting for this guy? Why are you going to that particular place? Blah, 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 blah. You know, you're going to have times when your family is going to honk you the hell off. Okay? That you're going to go, what the hell's wrong with him? Some people, it's a constant theme. Others, it's like occasionally, why the heck are you dating that guy or voting for that guy or supporting that cause or blah, 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 and all this? Why are you going on vacation to that particular place? Star Trek, to me, the reason I'm not a huge fan was the original series and the Next Generation series just didn't have the dramatic pull to it like Babylon 5 did and like Deep Space Nine did. Deep Space Nine is my favorite show because it had conflict. There were going to be times when Kira and Sisko didn't get along, didn't see eye to eye. You're going to have times where Bashir and Worf didn't get on along, and all these other people. You had Garrick, you had Quark, you had Odo, you had all these other people coming along. It was a great series. It took 2 years to really get into it and the Dominion War to start to really make it interesting. But by God, when they finally hit the ground running, those last 5 years of it were great. Not as good as Babylon 5, but great. My feeling is that when all is said and done, Picard is going to change the face of the Trek generation because it's going to allow us to have this utopian universe on Earth and for most of the Federation. But there are going to be side stories that are going to get you interested because they're not going to be perfect. I can tell you right now that I'm going to like Picard, even though I've only watched a couple episodes and things came up and I got distracted and other things. I've got to go back and watch it. I think that when you get right down to it, it's going to make a much better product. Picard, I don't see lasting more than 2 or 3 or 4 years, maybe. And let's face it, Patrick Stewart's getting older. His health is eventually going to go down. We know this. It's just a matter of time. Not that I'm really jumping up and down for it. But let me get off here. I've got to go do something. We'll talk about this another time. Bye.